I lunged for Max, a desperate attempt to shield him, to protect him from the impending danger. But I was too slow, too late. The shot echoed through the quiet morning like a crack of thunder, a deafening explosion that shattered the fragile peace. Max's yelp of pain, a sharp, heart-wrenching cry, shattered my world into a million jagged pieces. My brave, loyal, gentle partner collapsed onto our freshly cut grass, his beautiful golden fur staining a horrifying crimson, the color of blood, of violence, of betrayal. Self-defense! Catherine shrieked, still filming, her voice a mixture of triumph and panic. We all saw it. The dog was aggressive. But her voice faltered, her carefully constructed facade crumbling as other neighbors, drawn by the commotion, began emerging from their homes, their phones raised, capturing the truth, the undeniable reality of what had just happened. I cradled Max's head in my lap, my hands trembling. My training, my years of experience, kicking in, keeping me clear-headed enough to apply pressure to his wound, to try to stem the flow of blood. His brown eyes, those soulful, trusting eyes, looked up at me, full of unwavering love, even now, even in the face of such unimaginable pain. Sirens wailed in the distance. A growing chorus of urgency. Someone had called 911. Someone had witnessed the horror. My hands shook violently as I pulled out my phone, pressing the emergency contact I'd hoped I'd never need, the direct line to my chief of staff. "Sarah," I said, my voice barely a whisper, choked with emotion. "It's James. They shot him, Sarah. They actually shot my dog." "Oh, sir," she replied, her voice urgent, sharp, cutting through the fog of my shock. "You need to turn on the news, right now." Someone posted a video of the shooting on social media. It's everywhere. It's gone viral. I pulled out my tablet, my fingers fumbling with the screen, and clicked the first news link she sent. There it was, the horrifying truth, displayed for the world to see. Shaky phone footage from my neighbor's second-story window, capturing everything. Tom with his gun, Catherine screaming about property values, and Max's heart-wrenching yelp, the sound that would forever haunt my nightmares. The video had over 1 million views already, a testament to the power of social media, the instantaneous spread of information. The emergency room doors burst open, and Brenda stormed in, her designer handbag swinging wildly as she waved her phone in my face, her perfectly made-up face now pale, her mascara slightly smeared, a picture of unraveling composure. "You're him! You're actually him!" she stammered, her voice a mixture of disbelief and dawning horror. "You're Congressman Montgomery!" That's it. I stood up slowly, drawing myself to my full height. The years of keeping my identity private, of living a quiet, unassuming life in their community, crumbling around me. "Yes, Brenda," I said, my voice cold and hard, devoid of any warmth. "I am. And you and your husband just shot a congressionally protected service animal, and it was all caught on video, broadcast for the world to see." She stumbled backwards, nearly knocking over a chair, her carefully constructed world collapsing around her. But, you never said anything. You let us think you were just another homeowner, another ordinary resident." "I wanted to live quietly, Brenda," I replied, my voice laced with a bitter irony, "to work on my housing reform bill, to make a difference without drawing unnecessary attention. I chose your community, Oak Haven Estates, because the listing promised peaceful living, a tranquil environment. Instead, you, your husband, and Catherine harassed a disabled veteran and his service animal for months, relentlessly, cruelly, all because of your obsession with superficial appearances and inflated property values." Catherine burst through the doors next, her face a mask of conflicting emotions, anger, fear, and a dawning realization of the magnitude of their actions. "This is a trick!" she shrieked, her voice cracking with desperation. "He's lying. It's all a conspiracy." But her voice lacked its usual conviction, faltering when she saw the news playing silently on the waiting room TV. My official congressional photo displayed next to the horrifying footage of the shooting. My phone buzzed again, a relentless barrage of messages flooding in, from other members of Congress, from the media, from veteran groups, from disability advocates, from ordinary citizens, outraged by what they had witnessed. Justice for Max was trending nationwide, a testament to the power of public outrage. The young vet tech who'd taken Max back, her scrubs stained with his blood, a stark reminder of the violence he'd endured, appeared, her face etched with concern. I rushed to her, my heart pounding in my chest, a desperate plea for good news. Brenda and Catherine fell silent, their bravado evaporating, probably realizing, finally, just how much trouble they were in, the magnitude of the consequences they faced. "He's stable," the vet tech said softly, her voice a soothing balm to my frayed nerves. "The bullet missed his vital organs, miraculously, but he'll need surgery, extensive surgery. Dr. Peterson wants to talk to you about the procedure, the risks, the recovery." Relief flooded through me, a wave of gratitude washing over me, but it was quickly followed by a surge of anger, a burning fury directed at the people who had caused this, who had inflicted this pain on my loyal companion. I turned to Brenda and Catherine, who were now huddled together near the exit, their faces pale, their carefully constructed facades shattered. "I've spent the last year working tirelessly on housing reform legislation," and I said, my voice low and controlled, but laced with steel. "But now I'm adding specific provisions, very specific provisions, about service animals and HOA oversight, holding them accountable for their actions. Your actions, your cruelty, just became Exhibit A in congressional hearings. Your blatant disregard for the law, for basic human decency, will now be used to enact real, lasting change." Catherine's face crumpled, her carefully maintained composure dissolving into tears. "But our property values, our community standards," she wailed, her voice a desperate plea. "Your property values?" I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "Check your real estate apps, Catherine. News travels fast, especially in the digital age. Houses in Oak Haven Estates are already being listed below market value. Turns out, shooting a congressman's service dog, a beloved companion, isn't exactly great for the neighborhood's reputation, is it?" Brenda grabbed her phone, frantically scrolling through Zillow, her gasp a sharp intake of breath, telling me she'd seen the plummeting prices, the devastating impact of their actions on their precious community. "We can fix this," she pleaded, her voice trembling, her eyes wide with desperation. "We'll drop all the complaints, every single one. We'll pay all of Max's vet bills, every penny. Just, please, make this go away." "It's too late," I said, pulling out a folder from my briefcase, a meticulously compiled dossier of their transgressions. "This," I said, holding up the folder, "is what justice looks like." Inside were copies of every harassing letter they'd sent, every fabricated complaint, photos of my vandalized garden, recordings of their discriminatory HOA meetings, a mountain of evidence documenting their relentless campaign of harassment. The FBI is already investigating. Service animal interference, you see, is a federal crime, Brenda, a serious offense. The vet tech returned, her expression serious but calm. "Sir, Dr. Peterson is prepped and ready for you whenever you are." I gathered my things, preparing to go back and see Max. my loyal companion, the one who had endured so much. I watched Brenda sink into a chair, her face buried in her hands, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. Catherine was still frozen, staring blankly at her phone as angry comments, a torrent of outrage, flooded the HOA's social media pages, a digital testament to their downfall. As I walked through the doors to see Max, to be with him during this critical time, I heard Brenda whisper, her voice barely audible, "What have we done?" My hand rested on the door handle, a cold, metallic touch, and I looked back one last time, my gaze lingering on the two women who had caused so much pain, so much suffering. "You tried to destroy my life, to hurt my dog, because you thought I was powerless, insignificant, just another homeowner you could bully and intimidate. Now," I said, my voice resonating with a newfound strength, "you get to learn what real power looks like. The power of the law you so casually, so arrogantly disregarded." The next few hours would be a blur of activity, a whirlwind of decisions and updates. But right now, at this very moment, all that mattered was Max, my faithful companion, my battle buddy. As I stepped through those doors, into the sterile, antiseptic environment of the veterinary clinic, I couldn't help but wonder, would saving him, would achieving justice for him, cost me everything I'd worked for in Congress? Or would this become the defining moment of my career, the catalyst for real, lasting change? The morning news vans, a pack of hungry wolves, lined our once quiet, serene street. Like vultures, their cameras poised, their reporters eager for a soundbite. A glimpse of the unfolding drama. I watched from my window as Catherine Martin paced her front lawn, her perfectly toned legs clad in her designer yoga pants, desperately trying to shoo away the relentless reporters while clutching her phone to her ear, a picture of frantic desperation. The look of panic on her face, the stark contrast to her usual smug, entitled expression, was a small, bitter satisfaction. Max's blood, a stark reminder of their cruelty, hadn't even dried on my back patio, and already their perfect, meticulously crafted world was crumbling, disintegrating around them. My phone buzzed again. Another text message from Sarah, my ever-vigilant chief of staff. The story had reached national headlines, dominating the news cycle. Congressman's service dog shot by HOA board member. Social media was exploding with fury, a digital firestorm of outrage and condemnation. I clicked through Twitter, watching the security camera footage I'd released, the footage that laid bare their cruelty, go viral. The clear audio of Catherine screaming about property values just seconds before Tom fired the shot, a damning indictment, was playing on repeat, a testament to their callous disregard for the law, for basic human decency. No amount of spin, no carefully crafted PR campaign could save them now. A knock at my door, a hesitant rap, made Max whimper from his bed, his bandaged side a constant, painful reminder of what they'd done, the violence they'd inflicted. Through the peephole, I saw Brenda, her usual perfectly styled hair now disheveled, her eyes red-rimmed and puffy, a picture of utter despair. I opened the door just enough to hear her stammered plea, her voice choked with emotion. "Congressman Montgomery, please, we can work something out. We didn't know who you were." Catherine, she was just trying to protect our community standards. Tom made a terrible mistake. A terrible, terrible mistake. What will it take? What will it take to keep this quiet? I felt a cold smile spread across my face, a mirthless expression devoid of any warmth. "Protect community standards? Let me show you something, Brenda." I pulled out my tablet, Opening the file, my team had painstakingly compiled a digital archive of their transgressions. Here's every HOA violation notice issued in Oakhaven Estates for the past 5 years, a comprehensive record of your community standards. Notice anything strange about who received them, Brenda? Her face went even paler, if that was possible, as I scrolled through the data, the undeniable evidence of their systematic discrimination. Every single complaint about pets, about yard maintenance, about community standards had been filed against minorities, against disabled residents, against elderly homeowners on fixed incomes. The pattern was impossible to ignore, a blatant display of prejudice and abuse of power. This isn't just about Max anymore, Brenda, I said quietly, my voice devoid of any emotion. While you were busy harassing my service dog, my office was investigating HOA abuse across the country, a systemic problem that has gone unchecked for far too long. Oakhaven Estates, your precious, perfect community, just became Exhibit A, the poster child for everything that's wrong with unchecked HOA power. A commotion down the street, a sudden surge of noise caught our attention. Catherine was now screaming at a reporter who had dared to step onto her meticulously manicured lawn, her voice shrill and desperate. You don't understand. Property values are everything. We can't have dogs running around. It attracts the wrong kind of people. The reporter's camera, a silent, impartial witness, captured every word, every desperate, bigoted utterance. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. My phone buzzed again. Another notification. Another piece of the puzzle falling into place. The housing reform bill I'd been quietly, diligently working on for months. The bill that had languished in committee, facing an uphill battle, was suddenly gaining massive bipartisan support. Colleagues who'd been on the fence, hesitant to take a stand, were now calling to co-sponsor, eager to be associated with the cause. Funny, I thought, how a viral video of HOA abuse of a congressman's service dog being shot in cold blood could change political winds, could shift the balance of power. Brenda was still standing there, trembling, her body racked with sobs. What do you want from us?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. I handed her a thick envelope, a weighty document that held their fate in its pages. "Here's your chance to do the right thing, Brenda. A small chance." Oh, inside was my proposal, a meticulously crafted plan for a complete overhaul of Oakhaven Estates governance. New board elections, immediate and transparent, third-party oversight, mandatory civil rights training for all board members, a complete dismantling of their carefully constructed system of power and control. Sign it, Brenda. Sign it now, or I'll add your blatant, documented discrimination data to my congressional testimony next week. Your choice. She snatched the envelope, her hands shaking so badly she could barely open it, her fingers fumbling with the pages. Behind her, I saw Tom being led out of his house in handcuffs, his face ashen, his eyes filled with a dawning realization of the consequences of his actions. The police had finally arrived to arrest him for animal cruelty and reckless discharge of a firearm, a small measure of justice in the face of such senseless violence. Catherine was now crying into her phone, probably calling her lawyer, desperately seeking a way out of the mess she'd created. Max, my loyal companion, limped to my side, his tail wagging weakly, his unwavering trust a constant source of strength. I scratched behind his ears, remembering all the nights he'd helped me through my PTSD episodes, his gentle presence a shield against the darkness. How dare they, I thought. How dare they try to take him from me, to inflict such pain on such an innocent, loving creature? A new text message lit up my phone. Photos from a resident, a brave soul who had finally found the courage to speak out, showing years of HOA documents being shredded in Brenda's garage last night, a desperate, futile attempt to destroy the evidence, to erase their crimes. More evidence for the investigation, more fuel for the fire. The House of Cards, their carefully constructed world of lies and deceit, was falling faster than they could possibly cover their tracks. Protesters started gathering at the community entrance, a growing crowd holding signs with Max's picture, demanding justice, their voices a chorus of outrage. Local news crews interviewed residents who'd been silenced by HOA threats for years, their stories finally being heard, their voices amplified by the national attention. One elderly woman wept as she described being fined into near bankruptcy for having a wheelchair ramp, a necessary accommodation for her disability. A Latino family showed documentation of being cited for cooking odors from their traditional family meals, a blatant display of cultural insensitivity and prejudice. Brenda's hand trembled as she signed the documents, each signature a reluctant admission of guilt, a surrender of power. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "My husband, he's on the city council. This will ruin us." I took the papers, checking each signature, ensuring that every detail was correct. "You should have thought of that, Brenda," I said, my voice cold and unforgiving. "Before you decided to shoot a congressman's service dog, before you engaged in a systematic campaign of harassment and discrimination. But don't worry," I added, a hint of bitter irony in my voice. "You'll have plenty of time to think about it, to reflect on your actions during the federal investigation." As she hurried away, her shoulders slumped in defeat, I saw Catherine being interviewed on live television, still desperately trying to defend herself, to spin the narrative, to portray herself as the victim. "I had no idea he was in Congress," she insisted, her voice shrill and unconvincing. "We just wanted to maintain our standards. Dogs reduce property values by 15%. It's a fact." The reporter, a seasoned journalist, cut her off, his voice firm and unwavering. "Ma'am, are you aware that discriminating against service animals is a federal crime, regardless of the owner's position, regardless of your so-called community standards?" I closed my door, shutting out the noise, the chaos, the relentless media scrutiny. I sat down heavily next to Max, my loyal companion, my furry friend. My phone kept buzzing. A constant barrage of calls from major networks, from other members of Congress, from disability rights organizations, a testament to the national outrage sparked by their cruelty. Tomorrow, I'd deal with it all. Tomorrow, I'd start turning this nightmare, this personal tragedy, into real, lasting change, into legislation that would protect others from the abuses of power I'd endured. But tonight, watching through my window as karma, swift and merciless, did its work, I held Max close, my hand gently stroking his fur, and whispered, "We got them, buddy. We finally got them." Outside, another news van pulled up, its satellite dish reaching towards the sky, and I couldn't help but wonder how many other HOAs across America, how many other petty tyrants hiding behind the guise of community standards were about to face their own day of reckoning, their own moment of truth. The doctor said Max might never walk the same way again, that his gait might be permanently altered, but they didn't know my dog's spirit, his unwavering resilience. I watched him, my heart swelling with pride and love, take his first shaky, hesitant steps in our living room. His golden fur, still patchy from the surgery, the scars a permanent reminder of the violence he'd endured. The news vans outside had finally left, their insatiable hunger for drama temporarily sated, but the damage to Oakhaven Estates, to their carefully constructed facade of perfection was permanent, irreparable. Every time Max flinched at a loud noise, a sudden movement, my heart broke all over again, a fresh wave of anger washing over me. Catherine Martin's perfect world, the world she'd so fiercely defended, was crumbling, disintegrating around her. I heard she had tried to sell her house to escape the consequences of her actions, but nobody wanted to buy from the woman who had helped shoot a congressman's service dog, the woman who had become a national symbol of HOA abuse. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing, a constant stream of messages from other representatives and senators expressing their support, their outrage, asking about Max, offering their assistance. The story had struck a nerve, resonating across the country, a stark reminder of the vulnerability of those who rely on service animals, the constant threat of discrimination they face. Last week, I caught Catherine trying to sneak into my backyard with her phone, probably looking for something, anything, to complain about, some new fabricated violation to report. But this time, I was ready. The upgraded security cameras I'd installed, my silent, ever-vigilant guardians, caught everything, including her pathetic attempt to plant fake evidence of dog waste, a desperate, transparent attempt at retaliation. The police, alerted to her continued harassment, weren't as friendly to her this time, their patience worn thin by her relentless campaign of lies and deceit. Brenda, our former HOA president, the woman who had ruled Oakhaven Estates with an iron fist, sent me a letter, a handwritten plea for forgiveness, begging to meet, to explain everything, to somehow make it right. I read her letter twice, carefully considering her words, before letting Max use it as a chew toy, a small, symbolic act of defiance. Their fake apologies, their belated attempts at remorse, meant nothing. I had uncovered years of their dirty work, their systematic campaign of harassment and discrimination, a pattern of abuse that could no longer be ignored. Other homeowners, emboldened by my actions, by the national attention the case had garnered, started coming forward, sharing their own stories, their own experiences of how Brenda and Catherine had targeted elderly residents, single parents, and minorities with made-up violations, with fines and threats, all in the name of maintaining their precious community standards. The media, hungry for more details, dug deeper into our HOA's history, uncovering a treasure trove of incriminating evidence. They found recordings of board meetings where Catherine bragged about forcing a young widow to sell her house because her crying baby was deemed a nuisance, a blatant violation of basic human decency. Brenda had written emails, arrogant and unapologetic, about keeping certain people out of the neighborhood, to call protect our values, their own words becoming their worst enemy, a testament to their prejudice and bigotry. My team discovered that Tom, Brenda's husband, the man who had shot Max, had been lying about his security credentials for years. He had never had a license to carry a firearm, as the HOA's self-proclaimed security coordinator, a blatant violation of the law. The police, armed with this new information, were very interested in that detail, adding another layer of charges to his already mounting legal troubles. Max's physical therapy sessions became the highlight of our weeks, a testament to his resilience, his unwavering spirit. Other dog owners in the neighborhood, those who had previously been silent, intimidated by the HOA's power, would stop by with treats and words of support, a sign of the changing tide, the growing sense of community. Even Mrs. Jackson, who used to complain about every little thing, every minor infraction, brought over homemade dog biscuits, a gesture of kindness, of solidarity. The community was healing, slowly but surely, but not everyone was happy about it. Not everyone was ready to embrace change. Catherine, ever defiant, tried starting a counter-campaign on social media, a desperate attempt to portray herself as the real victim, the one who had been wronged. She posted edited videos of Max barking, carefully curated clips designed to paint him as aggressive, dangerous. But my security footage, the unedited, undeniable truth, showed her deliberately agitating him through the fence, provoking him. A clear pattern of harassment. Her followers, those who had blindly supported her, dropped faster than the neighborhood's plummeting property values, their faith in her shattered by the overwhelming evidence of her cruelty. The most surprising, the most unexpected support came from Catherine's own teenage daughter, Emily. She visited one afternoon, tears streaming down her face, to apologize for her mother's behavior, for the pain and suffering she had caused. She revealed that she had been secretly recording Catherine's HOA meetings for months, disgusted by how they treated people, by their blatant disregard for basic human decency. Emily's evidence, her courageous act of defiance, became crucial for the federal investigation, a key piece in the puzzle of their downfall. Last night, I watched Max play with the neighbor's kids for the first time since the shooting, since that horrific morning that had changed everything. He still limped, a permanent reminder of the violence he'd endured, but his tail wagged with unrestrained joy, his spirit unbroken. A reporter, one of the many who had been camped outside our house, asked me if I would consider dropping the charges if Brenda and Catherine issued a public apology, a genuine expression of remorse. I looked at Max, my loyal companion, remembered the blood staining his fur, the terror in his eyes, the agonizing nights of pain and recovery. Some things, I realized, can't be fixed with a simple sorry. Some wounds run too deep, some betrayals are too profound. The old HOA board's office, once a symbol of their power and control, was empty now. Their precious rule books, their meticulously crafted regulations, gathering dust, relics of a bygone era. The interim resident council, elected in a landslide victory for reform, had uncovered even more damning evidence. Documents showing how Brenda and Catherine had been funneling HOA fees, residents' hard-earned money, into their personal accounts for years, a blatant act of embezzlement. They thought they were untouchable, invincible in their perfect little kingdom, their gated community of privilege and prejudice. They never expected a congressman, a quiet, unassuming figure, and his three-legged dog, his loyal service animal, to bring it all crashing down, to expose their corruption and cruelty to the world. Tomorrow, Max has another vet checkup, another step in his long, arduous road to recovery. His progress is slow, but steady, a testament to his unwavering spirit, his resilience. He's teaching me something new every day, about courage, about forgiveness, about the enduring power of love and loyalty. As I sit on my porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and purple, a breathtaking display of natural beauty, I see Catherine packing boxes into her car, her house finally sold at half her original asking price, a fire sale driven by the relentless tide of public opinion. Sometimes I think karma, that elusive force of cosmic justice, has a way of making things right, of balancing the scales. But as I look at the certified letter on my desk, a formal legal document from Catherine's lawyer, a last-ditch attempt at intimidation, I wonder if this fight is truly over, if their reign of terror has truly ended, or if Catherine, in her desperation, has one last desperate move planned, one final act of defiance. This story highlights the importance of standing up for what's right, even when facing seemingly insurmountable odds. It demonstrates that even seemingly small acts of cruelty and discrimination can have far-reaching consequences, and that one person with courage and determination can make a difference. It also underscores the vital role of service animals and the need to protect the rights of individuals with disabilities. Finally, it serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and the importance of holding those in positions of authority accountable for their actions. Have you ever experienced HOA abuse or witnessed discrimination against service animals? Share your stories in the comments below. Let's create a community of support and advocacy. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more stories that inspire and empower. Your voice matters. My eyes darted around. Just down the road, partially hidden, was a local news van. People were filming from their cars parked along the lane. They had orchestrated this entire spectacle. "Get off my property," I ground out, my fists clenched. "Actually," Robert Crawford drawled, unrolling a large, freshly printed survey map with theatrical slowness. "According to this latest certified survey, a significant portion of this structure," he tapped the map dramatically, indicating my house, "encroaches on Meadowbrook Association land." Stunned and furious, I jumped in my truck, determined to get to my Northeast Power office and override whatever bogus disconnection order they'd manufactured. I screeched into the parking lot, only to find my office door locked tight. My boss, Mark Jennings, waited in the hallway, his expression deeply uncomfortable, refusing to meet my eyes. "Mark, I'm sorry," he mumbled, handing me a sealed envelope. "Effective immediately, you're on administrative leave, pending a full investigation into misuse of authority and potential conflicts of interest." "What investigation? What conflict?" I demanded, ripping the envelope open. "Allegations were brought to the board yesterday," Jennings continued, shifting his weight nervously. "Accusations that you've been manipulating power grid access and threatening infrastructure stability to coerce the Meadowbrook HOA regarding legitimate land claims." "Allegations brought by whom?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. He finally met my gaze, his own filled with a mixture of apology and helplessness. Robert Crawford brought the complaint forward. He presented compelling arguments. My stomach twisted into a knot of ice. Robert Crawford, Brenda's husband, he sat on the Northeast Power Oversight Board. "He's vice chairman," Jennings confirmed my unspoken question, his voice barely a whisper. "Been on the board for 3 years now." I slumped back against the wall, then stumbled back to my truck, hands shaking with a volatile cocktail of rage and despair. They had planned this meticulously. Cut my power, discredit me publicly, frame me with false accusations, and strip me of my ability to fight back through my job. All orchestrated by Robert Crawford, pulling strings from within the very company I worked for. My phone rang. An unfamiliar number. "Is this the Vance farm?" a gruff voice asked. "Yes. Who's calling?" "Ben Carter. Channel 8 News. We received an anonymous tip regarding illegal utility connections and potential power theft at your property. Care to comment?" Before I could even form a response, the ground began to vibrate with the low rumble of heavy engines. I looked in my rearview mirror. My blood ran cold. 3 enormous bulldozers, Harvest Estates logos gleaming on their sides, were rumbling inexorably down my long driveway. Behind them followed 2 pickup trucks carrying uniformed armed security guards. I slammed the truck into reverse, racing back towards the farm, skidding to a halt just yards in front of the lead bulldozer, blocking its path. Sheriff Brody pulled up moments later, his lights flashing, his face a mask of grim resignation. "Sheriff, you can't let them do this," I yelled, jumping out of the truck. He didn't meet my eyes, instead handing me a folded legal document. New emergency court order, Mark. Judge Harrison signed it less than an hour ago. Judge Harrison, Brenda Crawford's uncle by marriage, of course, authorizes immediate site preparation and secures access for the developers pending your full hearing next month. But the fraud, the permits. My hands are tied by this order, son, the sheriff said quietly, leaning closer. But between you and me, something about this whole damn thing stinks to high heaven. Get that lawyer of yours working overtime. I stood there, utterly powerless, watching as the armed guards established a perimeter around my western field, another section vital for crop rotation, and the bulldozers roared to life, their massive blades biting into the earth my family had nurtured for generations. News cameras zoomed in from the road, capturing the scene exactly as the Crawfords had intended. Me, the supposed power thief, an obstacle to progress, watching helplessly as legitimate development proceeded. That evening, numb and defeated, I retreated to the only place on the farm that felt safe, untouched by the Crawfords' reach. Mum's old storm cellar. Dug deep into the earth beneath the smokehouse, it was cool, damp, and blessedly silent. Surrounded by rows of her carefully preserved jams, jellies, and emergency supplies, I felt the full weight of my failure pressed down on me. What had I missed? What had she tried to tell me? "What would you do now, Mom?" I whispered into the earthy darkness, my voice choked. My fingers idly traced the rough-hewn wooden shelves she and Dad had built together decades ago. Behind a row of dusty pickle jars, my knuckles brushed against a loose board. Curiosity piqued, I pulled harder. The board came away, revealing a hidden, dark compartment I'd never known existed. Inside sat a small, rusted metal box. With trembling hands, I lifted it out and opened the creaking lid. Inside, beneath yellowed tissue paper, lay documents far older than any I'd found before. Original land grants signed with quill pens, brittle survey maps from the late 1800s, showing the original vast expanse of the Vance holdings, faded photographs of my grandfather shaking hands with county officials. But one document, tied with faded red ribbon, made my heart stop. It was titled Rural Electrification Easement Agreement, Vance Property and County Power Cooperative, 1952. My fingers, slick with sudden sweat, fumbled with the ribbon. I scanned the dense, typewritten text under the weak beam of Mom's flashlight, my breath catching in my throat. And then I saw it. A specific clause, circled multiple times in faded red ink, initialed by my grandfather. In perpetuity, the grantor, Vance family, retains absolute override authority concerning any future utility modifications, capacity adjustments, or infrastructure alterations affecting the herein granted easements crossing the grantor's designated property boundaries. Beneath these astonishing papers lay one more item. Another leather-bound journal, smaller than the first. Mum's familiar handwriting filled its pages, detailing every instance of HOA harassment with dates and times, stapled copies of threatening letters, meticulously documented zoning board anomalies. And taped inside the back cover were several tiny flash drives. "Always have a backup plan, Marky," she'd written on the final page, using her childhood nickname for me. "And never forget who actually owns the land those main power lines run across." A loud crash from the farmhouse above made me jump violently. Through the cellar's tiny, dirt-streaked ground-level window, I saw flashlights bobbing inside my ransacked house. The security guards were searching it, tossing furniture, breaking windows with impunity. I instinctively clutched the metal box and the journal to my chest, the 1952 document feeling like a tangible shield. Suddenly, I understood. This was Mom's final gift, her ultimate strategy, hidden away for the darkest hour. The HOA, the Crawfords, they thought they held all the cards, all the power. They had absolutely no idea what I now held in my hands. For the first time, in what felt like an eternity, a slow, determined smile spread across my face. The game wasn't over. It had just changed. The harsh glare of television lights and the clamor of reporters filled the air outside the county courthouse. 3 large news vans were parked prominently, satellite dishes aimed skyward. Inside, the hallways buzzed with a tense energy, packed shoulder to shoulder with neighbors, local farmers, anxious Meadowbrook residents, HOA board members trying to look inconspicuous, and curious onlookers drawn by the unfolding drama. I clutched the worn leather briefcase containing Mum's hidden journal, the flash drives, and the vital 1952 easement document. Its weight, both a burden and a source of strength. Alicia Reyes walked calmly beside me, projecting an aura of unshakable confidence. As we navigated the throng towards the courtroom, Brenda Crawford brushed past, flanked by her team of sleek, expensive-looking lawyers. "You won't win this, Vance," she hissed, her voice low and venomous, her eyes burning with hatred. "We've already started building on your land. It's ours now." My hands shook slightly, not from fear this time, but from the sheer audacity of her continued lies. Inside the packed courtroom, Judge Albright, a stern-faced woman with sharp eyes and silver hair pulled back severely, called the emergency hearing to order. An immediate hush fell over the room. "This case involves extremely serious allegations from both sides," she began, her voice commanding attention. "Mrs. Crawford, your homeowners association claims rightful ownership of the disputed farmland based on annexation papers purportedly signed 5 years ago, and seeks to enjoin Mr. Vance from interfering with development. Mr. Vance, you allege fraud, forgery, elder abuse, and the illegal seizure of your family's property. Let's begin." Brenda's lead attorney, smooth and polished, approached the bench with confident strides. "Your Honor, the Meadowbrook Association legally and properly incorporated this adjacent, largely untended farmland through established county channels. Mrs. Eleanor Vance willingly signed these documents." He held up a folder, presumably containing the forged papers. "The current owner, her son, is simply using his grief and his position at the power company to obstruct progress and extort the community." "Untended?" I whispered furiously to Alicia. "Mom poured her lifeblood into that farm every single day until they dragged her to the hospital." Judge Albright examined the proffered documents briefly. "These appear, on the surface, to be in order. Mr. Vance, your response?" Alicia stood, poised and direct. "Your Honor, before we even address the deeply flawed premise of land ownership presented by the HOA, we must resolve a more urgent, foundational matter. My client, Mr. Vance, the regional supervisor for Northeast Power, has been wrongfully suspended from his position based on demonstrably false accusations. These accusations were lodged by Mr. Robert Crawford." She gestured towards Brenda's husband, seated stiffly beside her, "a member of the Northeast Power Oversight Board who deliberately and unethically concealed his direct conflict of interest, namely, that his wife, HOA President Brenda Crawford, stands to profit millions from the very development Mr. Vance is being accused of obstructing." Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Robert Crawford's face tightened, a vein pulsing in his temple. "Furthermore," Alicia continued, her voice ringing with conviction, "we have evidence, including eyewitness accounts and photographic proof, that the HOA, likely under the direction of the Crawfords, deliberately and illegally cut electrical service to my client's residence yesterday morning as part of a coordinated campaign of intimidation and harassment. Objection! Brenda's attorney jumped up. These accusations are inflammatory and irrelevant to the core land dispute. I will determine relevance, Counselor, Judge Albright stated sharply, her gaze fixed on Alicia. Continue. Alicia nodded. Your Honor, even if we were to temporarily set aside the glaring questions surrounding the land documents themselves, Mr. Vance has discovered critical historical documents that fundamentally change the entire landscape of this case. She gestured to me. My heart pounded against my ribs as I stepped forward, placing the old, rusted metal box on the table before the judge. With trembling fingers, I carefully removed the 1952 easement agreement. Your Honor, I began, my voice steadier than I expected, these are the original power grid easement contracts signed by my grandfather, Thomas Vance, and the county cooperative back in 1952. They contain a unique, legally binding clause. I pointed directly to the section circled in faded red ink. It explicitly states, and I quote, "In perpetuity, the grantor, Vance family, retains absolute override authority concerning any future utility modifications, capacity adjustments, or infrastructure alterations affecting the herein granted easements crossing the grantor's designated property boundaries." The attorney representing Northeast Power, a distinguished gray-haired man seated at the company's designated table, leaned forward abruptly, his eyes widening in surprise as he read the passage from the copy Alicia provided him. This means, Your Honor, Alicia explained clearly, that regardless of who holds title to the surface land today, the Vance family legally retains ultimate control over all power infrastructure that crosses the original 2,100-acre farm footprint. This includes the primary trunk lines that currently service the entire Meadowbrook development and the proposed Harvest Estates site. Audible gasps echoed through the courtroom. Brenda Crawford's face turned an alarming shade of pale, her carefully constructed composure finally shattering. Judge Albright leaned forward, scrutinizing the aged document intently. "This document appears authentic," she murmured. The Northeast Power attorney rose slowly to his feet. "Your Honor," he addressed the court, his voice grave, "Northeast Power's legal team was provided with copies of this document late last night. We have reviewed it extensively overnight. It is indeed genuine, unforeseen, and legally binding. In light of this, Northeast Power immediately withdraws any and all adverse actions taken against Mr. Vance. He is reinstated to his full duties as regional supervisor, effective immediately, with apologies and full back pay. Furthermore," he added, glancing towards the Crawfords, "we will be launching an internal ethics investigation regarding Mr. Crawford's failure to disclose." "This is absurd. Preposterous," Brenda shrieked, jumping to her feet, her face contorted with fury. "Those papers are ancient history, relics. We have modern development plans, approved by the county. Plans requiring utility infrastructure approval," I stated quietly but firmly, "which, according to these documents, requires my family's explicit consent, Your Honor." Judge Albright banged her gavel sharply. "Order, Mrs. Crawford. Control yourself, or you will be removed." Alicia wasn't finished. "Your Honor, while the 1952 easement addresses the power infrastructure, we have considerably more evidence regarding the fraudulent acquisition of the land itself." She opened Mum's final journal. During Mrs. Eleanor Vance's debilitating cancer treatments, the HOA, led by Brenda and Robert Crawford, systematically harassed her, trespassed, moved boundary markers, and ultimately falsified critical documents. She placed Mum's detailed medical records alongside the HOA's annexation papers, the dates aligning perfectly with periods of hospitalization and incapacitation. "We have proof," including visitor logs and nursing notes, that Brenda Crawford and other board members visited Mrs. Vance in the hospital on the very days these supposed signatures were obtained. Furthermore, Alicia added, holding up one of the tiny flash drives, we have recordings. She signaled to her assistant, who plugged the drive into the courtroom's audio system. Brenda Crawford's unmistakable voice suddenly filled the stunned courtroom, captured on one of Mum's secret recordings during a supposed friendly visit at the hospital. Look, she'll probably be dead soon anyway. Just get Gary to backdate the papers, file them quietly. We'll deal with whatever kid inherits later. He lives out of state. He probably won't even notice. A wave of shocked silence washed over the room, thick and suffocating. That's taken out of context. It's edited, Brenda stammered, her face ashen, eyes darting wildly. You can't prove— We can, Your Honor, Alicia interrupted calmly. We have had these recordings authenticated by 2 independent forensic audio experts. Their affidavits are included in our filings. Judge Albright's face had darkened into a thunderous mask of judicial fury. Based on the compelling evidence presented here today, the 1952 easement, the medical records contradicting signed documents, the authenticated recording, and the testimony regarding procedural irregularities and potential undue influence, I am issuing an immediate, indefinite freeze on all development activities related to the Harvest Estates project. Furthermore, I am referring this entire matter to the District Attorney's Office for a full criminal investigation into fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. Sheriff, she looked towards Brody, you will secure the disputed property immediately, remove all construction equipment and personnel, and ensure Mr. Vance's access and safety are unimpeded. 3 hours later, I walked out of the courthouse into the bright, almost blinding sunshine. Reporters swarmed me, microphones thrust forward, questions flying. Mr. Vance, how does it feel to take on a powerful HOA and win? Will you be pressing full criminal charges against the Crawfords? What are your plans now? Will you restore power to the Meadowbrook development? I held up my hands, waiting for a semblance of quiet. My family, I began, my voice steady, has farmed this land for over 100 years. We've always tried to be good neighbors. I never wanted this fight. I just wanted to protect what rightfully belongs to my family, my mother's legacy. As cameras flashed, I saw Brenda Crawford, no longer looking smug or defiant, but small and frightened, being quietly escorted by 2 deputies towards an unmarked police car. Our eyes met for a fleeting second before she looked away, shame evident even from a distance. That evening, I sat on Mum's porch steps, the familiar creak strangely comforting, as Sheriff Brody supervised the removal of the last bulldozer and security truck from my fields. My phone hadn't stopped ringing. Calls from relieved neighbors, supportive friends, even a panicked voicemail from Robert Crawford's lawyer offering a substantial private settlement, which I ignored. Alicia pulled up the driveway, carrying bags of takeout Thai food, a welcome sight. The district attorney wants to meet tomorrow morning to discuss the criminal charges, she said, handing me a container of steaming Pad CU. And the CEO of Northeast Power called me personally. Profuse apologies, wants to meet with you next week. What happens to the actual residents of Meadowbrook? I asked, looking across the valley towards the houses, whose futures now seemed uncertain. Legally, nothing changes immediately regarding their individual homes, Alicia explained, but the HOA itself will almost certainly be dissolved once the fraud investigation concludes and the inevitable civil suits are settled. They'll likely need to form a new, legitimate community association. 6 weeks later, my restored farmhouse hummed with quiet activity. Northeast Power crews, working under my direct supervision as reinstated and newly promoted regional manager, complete with a significant raise and back pay, were carefully installing upgraded, properly routed power lines, ensuring grid stability for the entire valley. The doorbell rang. Awkwardly shuffling on my porch stood Gary Stevens and several former HOA board members, their faces etched with embarrassment. "Mark," Gary began hesitantly, twisting his cap in his hands, We wanted to apologize, sincerely. Brenda and Robert, they convinced us you were just being difficult, blocking necessary community improvements for selfish reasons. We never knew about the fraud, the forged papers, what they did to your mum. We were misled. We're truly sorry." I studied their faces, seeing genuine remorse mixed with relief. "Come on in," I said, opening the door wider. "We should talk." Around my sturdy oak kitchen table, over mugs of strong coffee, neighbors who had recently been adversaries began the slow, sometimes difficult process of honest conversation. Most admitted they'd been blinded by Brenda's promises of skyrocketing property values and exclusive amenities, never questioning the ethics behind the progress. "So what happens to our neighborhood now?" asked Elaine Foster, an elderly woman who'd lived in her Meadowbrook home since long before the HOA even existed. "That," I replied, looking around the table, "is entirely up to all of you working together, but I might have some ideas about ensuring fair representation and responsible planning." 2 months later, as vibrant autumn colors painted the cornfields gold and the air held a crisp promise of winter, a different kind of gathering took place in my newly renovated barn. Children squealed with laughter, playing on hay bales, while adults, a mix of longtime farm community residents and former Meadowbrook homeowners, mingled easily, discussing the bylaws for the newly chartered Pine Grove Valley Community Association, a democratic, transparent organization created to replace the disgraced and disbanded HOA. Alicia joined me by the large barn window, watching as former antagonists shared cider and ideas, finding common ground. "Your mother would be incredibly proud, Mark," she said softly. Outside, workers were carefully removing the last faded Harvest Estates "Coming Soon" sign from the edge of my property. In its place, they meticulously hung a simple, beautifully carved wooden plaque. "Vance Family Farm, Est 1897. "You know what I finally learned from all this?" I told Alicia, watching fireflies begin to speckle the twilight sky over the fields Mum had fought so desperately to protect. Real power isn't about control, or leveraging positions, or fancy houses, or intimidating people. It's about standing up for what's right, for the truth, even when you feel like you're standing completely alone. It's about honoring your legacy and protecting the vulnerable. As dusk settled peacefully over my family's 2,100 acres, now legally protected in perpetuity by newly established conservation easements, ensuring they would never be subdivided, I felt Mum's presence beside me, not as a ghost, but as a quiet strength woven into the very fabric of the land we had saved together. The farm would remain whole, a living legacy for generations to come, and a potent reminder that sometimes, against overwhelming odds, justice truly can find a way. This story serves as a powerful reminder that unchecked power and greed can lead to devastating consequences, but courage, truth, and perseverance can ultimately prevail. It highlights the importance of community, vigilance against corruption, and the enduring strength found in protecting one's heritage and standing up for those who cannot stand for themselves. Real power lies not in domination, but in integrity. What did you think of Mark's journey? Have you ever witnessed or experienced a situation where someone had to fight back against overwhelming odds? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about justice and resilience.